Dear Warner Brothers, with this simple head swap I have single-handedly solved your Ezra Miller Flash problem. That'll be $1 million. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, poseability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Today, we're taking a look at the DC Multiverse Flash from the CW TV series. Starting off with the packaging, and Barry comes in a typical DC Multiverse window box. As is customary, he's pre-posed in a running position. Definitely makes for a dynamic presence on the shelf, but it also makes it very difficult to ascertain the quality of paint apps. As always, we've got the name and logo at the bottom, and on the side we can see that this is the Flash from The Flash, in case you confused him for any other Flash. Barcode for those who want it. As we can see, this is a Season 7 specific Flash, and on the back, I think I've been pretty upfront about how I dislike these very plain digital renders. That said, I do find myself feeling conflicted. I've said before that it's very important to have a clear product shot to let the customer know what they're supposed to be getting, especially with all the swappers out there, but compared to other McFarlane boxes, this is just so boring. It also highlights how inaccurate the final product actually is. For me, the biggest issue is the side-eye. This picture looks like Barry just discovered a terrible secret about you and doesn't know quite how to feel about it. For me, the biggest crime is how it affects the trading cards, which, as I've said, are usually a lot more fun and dynamic. As is for packaging, I'm giving the Flash half a point. Moving on to presentation, and the Flash stands at 7¼ inches. In general, this is my favorite version of the Flash costume that Gustin has worn on the series. That said, I am a bit more partial to the gold boots, and McFarlane's done a pretty good job. From the top, and I do think that his head's a bit too small and a bit too wide, but again, all the different panels and lines are there. As always, they've done a great job on the texture. The body itself alternates between looking kind of leathery and looking kind of basketball-y, and I'm really impressed that they went in to punch in all that gold piping, even on the back where most people won't see it. And of course, lots of good texture back here too. I like the gold lightning bolts around the cuffs of his gloves, and just like Godspeed, he benefits from the new wrist ball system. This does a much better job of integrating the joint into the sculpt. I particularly appreciate all the texture. One thing I'm not as big a fan of is the diaphragm joint. Note the difference in how it appeared in the original render versus how it came out. I will say that this does follow the line work better, but it also breaks up the torso in a way that just kind of looks flappy. Moving on down, and I love the belt. A little bit of paint slop on the back, but nobody's going to notice that. We get some more pretty good panels and piping on legs, and then moving all the way down to the boots, they've been sculpted really well. Nice lightning effects at the top, and perfectly integrated ankle balls. While this figure does have its issues, mainly with proportions, this is still a fantastic representation of Gustin from the CW series. What other speedsters would you like to see? Sound off in the comments. Personally, I really want John Wesley Shipp. For presentation, I'm giving this Flash 1 whole point. Moving on to poseability, and the articulation on this Flash is mostly pretty good. Again, mostly. From the top, and his head's on a dumbbell joint, up this much, this far down, really great tilt, and all the way around. The Flash has swivel hinge shoulders that raise up 90 degrees. If you look inside, you can see a rotator cuff, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, and again, those really great new McFarlane wrist balls that can swivel and hinge. Shifting to the torso, and Flash has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist, and once again, I do find myself having to gripe about this diaphragm. Barry can arch back this far, which is honestly really impressive, but he can only hunch over this far, which is, well, not at all. I believe that the main reason for that is the cut of this diaphragm. As you can see, when you try to push it forward, it's fighting against itself. What's crazy is if you look, you can actually see the line where the diaphragm joint was supposed to be. It would have broken up the line work on the sculpt more, but it probably also would have given a lot more range. Of course, he does also have a dumbbell waist. This allows him to tilt, but even using the waist, and he can't really hunch over at all. Below the waist, and Barry has a typical McFarlane hips. They can kick forward 90 degrees and do a perfect split. Really good rotation at the hip, double jointed knees, toticulation, and the new and improved McFarlane ankle ball that can swivel, hinge, and pivot. While the diaphragm joint issue is annoying, I don't think it's worth docking points over, especially when the rest of the figure is so solid. For poseability, I'm giving the Flash 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and Barry comes with a trading card and a figure stand. If you want to read what it says, pause here. The Flash also comes with some Speed Force lightning, just sort of wraps around his chest like so. You can also flip it around this way. And hey, remember in my Godspeed video when when I made fun of the lightsaber battle at the end of Season 7? Well, McFarlane's decided to give him his very own lightning lightsaber. 2 of them, in fact. And if you're wondering, yes, Godspeed can absolutely hold one. Barry, I see your speed force is as big as mine. The nice thing is that they completely match the effects that came with Godspeed. But playability is more than just accessories, it's also about how well your figure plays with others. Since Barry can travel through time, here he is with the very first all-plastic action figure of the Flash. This, of course, is from the 1984 Superpowers collection by Kenner. In 1990, Toy Biz got the license and made this figure as part of their DC Comics superhero line. To me, and pretty much everyone else, it felt like a cheaper knockoff. In fact, DC felt that way also, so they took the license away from Toy Biz and gave it back to Kenner. Unfortunately, we wouldn't see another Flash figure until 1996 with Kenner's Total Justice. In the 2000s, the license transferred from Kenner to Mattel, which gave us this figure as part of DC Universe Classics. Running parallel to that line was DC Direct, later rebranded as DC Collectibles. While they did make a lot of figures I don't have, this one is from the DC Essentials line and remains my favorite Flash figure. In 2000, Mattel lost the license to McFarlane Toys, who gave us this figure as part of DC Multiverse. This one is based on his design from the Rebirth comics. In 2021, McFarlane gave us the Ezra Miller version from the Justice League Snyder Cut. These two met briefly on the Crisis on Infinite Earths TV crossover. Ezra Miller has become a pretty controversial figure because of allegations of violence and now even kidnapping. So if you want to swap out Ezra Miller for Grant Gustin, well, here you go. I'm astonished that the reds match perfectly. Honestly, this does look pretty good. If you are curious about how the Ezra Miller head would look on the CW body, well, here you go. The head sits a bit high, but it doesn't look bad. It's a bit more obvious when you look at the profile, but again, the reds match up perfectly. A couple of videos ago, we looked at this Godspeed figure. It's not based on his appearance in the TV show, but I do think it pairs pretty well. Reverse Flash, while a great figure, is unfortunately just a bit too cartoonish to go with your live-action version. Hopefully McFarlane gives us one. For the only other Flash character I have in my collection, here we have Gorilla Grodd. This one comes from the Injustice 2 video game. On the subject of Injustice 2, here he is with Green Arrow. I don't have the Stephen Amell figure, but this does look pretty good. Also on the subject of Injustice, here he is with Dr. Fate. This figure is definitely detailed enough to pass for live action. And honestly, I think I can say the same thing about this version of John Stewart Green Lantern. In fact, I actually keep him on my Snyder Cut shelf. Sticking with a green theme, and here he is with Martian Manhunter. This is the Brightest Day version from DC Direct. For some other Justice League figures though, and here he is with Action Comics 1000 Superman. That said, for a live action comparison, and here he is with Henry Cavill. Hopefully we get a Tyler Hoechlin version from Superman and Lois. Here he is with the Endless Winter Aquaman. It's not live action exactly, but is fairly realistic. Moving on to Batman, and here he is with 3 Jokers. Here he is with Raw Bat Battinson. And here he is with Batfleck. Here he is with the Endless Winter Wonder Woman. I chose this one because it's the most realistic comic version that I have. But for a more stylized Wonder Woman, here's the one designed by Todd McFarlane himself. Of course, if you're wondering how he might look with your movie Justice League, here he is with Wonder Woman from 1984. Here he is with Aquaman. Notice a similar diaphragm joint. And here he is with my favorite character from the Snyder Cut, and also the action figure wave, Cyborg. If you wanted to sub him out for Ezra Miller, I think you could. I also think it's just a better costume. And although he's not the one from the CW shows, this Deathstroke is pretty realistic as well. For another DC villain, here he is with the Joker that I kit bashed in my last video. For a relative scale comparison, here he is with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. While Barry comes with 3 accessories of his own, which for McFarlane is kinda rare, I really appreciate that he's also compatible with Godspeed's effects as well. Not only is he a good live-action Flash figure, he's just a great Flash figure overall. For playability, I'm giving the Flash 1 whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. I found this Flash at GameStop for $24.99. That said, I'm sure if you wait for a wider release, you'll be able to get it for closer to $20. Just be warned that wherever you get him, the cost for DC Multiverse is starting to creep up. For price, I'm giving the Flash 1 whole point for a grand total of 4.5 out of 5. For more Flash content, check out this video on Godspeed or this one on Reverse Flash. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.